The clock strikes midnight, and the house is eerily quiet. The only sound is the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Sarah, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, leans back against the sofa, her mind half drifting into sleep. Daniel, beside her, is absent-mindedly scrolling through his phone. Upstairs, their 3-year-old son Liam sleeps soundly in his room. Bella, their German shepherd, lies stretched out near the fireplace, her head resting on her paws. Despite the tranquility, a heavy sense of unease hangs in the air, unsettling Sarah. Bella stirred suddenly, her ears perking up as her head shot toward the staircase. Sarah noticed the shift immediately. "What is it, girl?" she asked, sitting up. Bella didn't respond. Instead, her gaze remained fixed on the stairs, her body tense, as if every muscle was ready to spring into action. She let out a low, guttural growl, a sound Sarah had never heard from her before. Daniel followed Bella's line of sight but saw nothing. "Probably just a squirrel on the roof," he muttered, trying to brush it off. Bella didn't move. Her growl grew deeper, her fur standing on end. The uneasy feeling Sarah had been ignoring all day now bloomed into full-blown fear. She glanced at Daniel, who was already getting up. "I'll check upstairs," he said, his voice steady but tight. He grabbed a flashlight from the table and started up the stairs. Bella followed close behind, her growls now turning into short, sharp barks. Sarah hesitated for a moment before following them. Her heart pounded in her chest, the staircase creaking under her weight. When they reached Liam's room, Bella went straight to the door, barking furiously. Daniel hesitated before opening it, unsure of what he might find. The door swung open with a soft creak, and the room was bathed in the glow of Liam's nightlight. Everything appeared normal at first glance. Liam was asleep in his bed, his little form undisturbed. But Bella wasn't convinced. She walked into the room, growling at the far corner near the wardrobe. Her body language was rigid, her eyes locked on the shadowy corner as if she could see something none of them could. Daniel swept the flashlight beam across the room, stopping at the wardrobe. The light revealed nothing out of the ordinary. A few scattered toys, Liam's small clothes hanging inside. But the intensity of Bella's growls made Sarah shiver. She walked over to Liam, gently brushing a hand over his soft hair. He stirred, but didn't wake. "There's nothing here," Daniel said, but his voice lacked conviction. Bella stayed in the corner, growling low and steady. The next day, Bella's behavior didn't improve. She stayed glued to Liam's side, following him everywhere and barking at even the slightest noise. Sarah couldn't ignore the tension anymore. "Something's wrong," she told Daniel as she watched Bella pacing outside Liam's room that evening. "She's never acted like this before." Daniel nodded, but he seemed hesitant to admit that their dog might be sensing something beyond the ordinary. Maybe she's just being protective. You know how dogs are. But Sarah wasn't convinced. Later that night, when the house had gone quiet again, Bella started barking uncontrollably. Sarah and Daniel ran upstairs, finding her once again growling at the wardrobe. This time, the air in the room felt different, heavier, colder. Sarah shivered, rubbing her arms. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Daniel nodded, frowning. He opened the wardrobe, but it was empty, save for Liam's clothes. Bella didn't stop barking, her focus unwavering. "Maybe we should check behind it," Sarah suggested, her voice trembling. "What if there's something there?" Reluctantly, Daniel moved the wardrobe aside, revealing an old, cracked section of the wall. A strange smell wafted out, a mix of damp wood and something sour, something decayed. Sarah covered her nose. "What is that?" she asked. But Daniel didn't answer. He knocked on the wall, and the hollow sound made Sarah's stomach twist. "There's space back here," he said, his voice hushed. Armed with a hammer, Daniel began chipping away at the wall, the sound of splintering wood echoing through the room. Bella barked louder, her body rigid with tension. When the hole was large enough to peer inside, Daniel shone his flashlight through. What they found made Sarah gasp. Inside was a hidden compartment filled with old items, a porcelain doll with one cracked eye, a rusted tin box of marbles, and a stack of faded photographs. But the most unsettling item was a small, tattered journal. Sarah picked it up, her hands trembling. The journal belonged to a little girl named Emily, who had lived in the house decades ago. The early entries were innocent enough, Emily writing about her favorite toys and her love for her parents. But as Sarah read further, the entries took a darker turn. Emily began describing whispers at night, shadows that seemed to move on their own, and a growing sense of dread. Her final entry sent chills down Sarah's spine. "The shadow doesn't like it when I talk about it. I told Mama and Papa, but they don't believe me. It's getting closer. I'm scared." Sarah's hands shook as she handed the journal to Daniel. Before he could react, a loud thud echoed through the room. The nightlight flickered, casting the room into brief darkness. Bella barked furiously, standing protectively in front of Liam's bed. Sarah rushed to grab Liam, clutching him tightly as fear gripped her chest. The air felt suffocating now, heavy with an unseen presence. "We need to leave," she said, her voice shaking. "Now!" Daniel didn't argue. They grabbed what they could and left the house that night, seeking refuge at a nearby hotel. Bella remained on edge, growling at the slightest noise. The next morning, Sarah and Daniel contacted a local historian to learn more about their house. What they discovered made their blood run cold. Several children had gone missing from the house over the years, their disappearances never solved. Emily was the last, her body never found. Terrified, Sarah and Daniel decided they couldn't stay in the house any longer. They packed up their belongings and sold the property, refusing to step foot inside again. Bella's behavior returned to normal once they left, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their loyal dog had saved them from something far worse. The journal and the old items were left behind, locked inside the house that seemed to hold its secrets tightly. As for the house, Sarah and Daniel never looked back. Whatever had haunted that place, whether it was Emily's shadow or something darker, could stay buried in its walls. They were just grateful to have escaped with their family intact, though the memory of that night would haunt them forever.